Right. So let's start with the introduction part. Before that, I'll introduce myself. Um, I'm Sridhar. I'll be the trainer for this entire Abap Hana. Okay. So I'm having around 17 to 18 years of IT experience, wherein I started my career with C language, then Java. So after 2 to 3 years of Java experience, I got an opportunity to work on SAP Abap. Then after this SAP Abap, I worked in different modules like WebDim Pro, UI5, both in backend as well as front end, and currently in what Hana platform also. Okay, so I'm into most of the technical modules of what SAP. Okay, this is my profile, right? So we'll start with the introduction part. So there is nothing like demo kind of thing. Directly we'll enter into the subject. Okay, and another point is whatever I'm discussing, you need not copy anything. Everything we'll share it through email by the end of the day. Every day, whatever we discuss, the notes, the programs, the diagrams, whatever it is, everything will be shared through email by the end of the day. Okay. So in between, if you have any questions, you can unmute and ask, or else you can use the chat box also. Okay, at the bottom on the go to meeting, you have the chat box. You can use that, or you can unmute and ask the questions. Yeah, Nageshwar, is it audible now? Yeah, Nageshwar, is it audible now? Okay, fine. Right. So we'll start with this. So this Abapana, we have designed this course for mainly for what Abap consultants. Okay, designed for Abap consultants. So if you are getting into this Abapana, it is understood that we are already good in what this Abap. So the prerequisites for learning this Abap Ana is the basic Abap. Okay, the basic Abap, and you also require some knowledge on what object oriented OOPS concepts. Okay, so when I say basic ABAP here, in basic ABAP we should know how to work with what internal tables. Okay, we should know about this modelization techniques. I mean to say what subroutines, include programs, how to call the function models. Okay, modelization techniques, and we should know the select queries. Okay, so these are the things we should know that in basic ABAP. And coming to object oriented concepts, we should know what is the class, methods, okay, attributes, okay, events, okay, and then constructors, interfaces, abstract classes, okay, interfaces, abstract classes, and we should also know this inheritance and what a polymorphism. So all the features of object oriented and other things like abstract class and what interfaces. So we it is assumed that we already know all these things, and directly we'll be entering into what this Abapana. This is the prerequisite for getting into this particular Abapana course. Okay. So before that, before getting into this, let us understand the difference between S4 ANA and what ABAP ANA. So most of the people will have the confusion between this S4 ANA and what ABAP ANA. So we are not discussing S4 ANA here. S4 ANA is purely functional. Okay, it is purely functional. Whereas if you take this ABAP ANA, it is purely what technical. Okay, so we are not going to discuss anything related to functional part. We'll focus only on the technical part, and whatever is mentioned in the course contents, we are going to discuss all those things practically. Okay, entire thing will be technical oriented. So to understand the difference between this S4 ANA and ABAP ANA, so what is this S4 ANA? If you take this S4 ANA, it is nothing but what? SAP Business Suite for what ANA? S4 HANA is basically what? It's a SAP Business Suite for what? Hana database. Hana is basically what? A database. Okay. So it's a SAP Business Suite for Hana. It is a next generation ERP. So what is this evolution of this S4 HANA is initially SAP has started with what? R2. Okay. Then they have released what? R3. Then they have released what? ERP. Now the latest part is what? S4 HANA. Okay. So since it is a fourth edition, they call it as what? S4. Okay. So this R2 way back in 1970s, whereas if you take this R3, it is somewhere in 1992, and ERP around 2004, I believe, yeah, 2004. And if you take this S4 HANA, it is somewhere in what 2015. Okay, so since it's the fourth edition of what Business Suite, they named it as what S4. Here 4 doesn't indicate version here; it's a fourth edition. Okay, fourth edition of what Business Suite released by what SAP. So what are these features of S4HANA? Is basically HANA is what? It's a database. HANA is a database. So what exactly this S4HANA is? Just like if you take our normal R3, ERP, all those things, we have different modules. Finance module, HR module, SD module, MM module, okay, CRM module. Like this, we have different types of what module. Similarly, in this S4HANA also, okay, we have different types of what modules. Okay, we have different modules, like we have what S4 HR HANA, S4 HANA supply chain, S4 HANA manufacturing, S4 HANA sales, S4 HANA what R&D, S4 HANA asset management, S4 HANA service, S4 HANA marketing, S4 HANA commerce. Like that, we have different lines of what business. So first what we'll do is, so what we understood so far is S4 HANA is purely functional and Abap HANA is what purely technical. So what I mean to say is, if you're having experience in Abap, if you're working as a Abap consultant, whether you're having 1 year experience or 10 years of experience, we need to get into what this Abap HANA. If you are from functional background, if you are a FICO consultant or SD consultant or HR consultant, whatever it is, okay. So depending on your what domain knowledge, all those things, you have to choose appropriate module in what S4 HANA. This is purely what functional, okay. So what are the features of this S4 HANA means? It is fast in-memory database. So what is the meaning of this in-memory database? We'll understand by the end of the session. Okay, fast in-memory database. So there are many features. I'm just documenting some of the important features. Fast in-memory database means if you take our one second. Yeah, Sheikh, can you please mute your speakers?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, yeah. And the attendees list, you can right click on your name and mute.
Yeah, okay.
In the attendees list, right click on your name and mute.
Okay.
You are able to see the attendees list?
Yeah, I'm able to see.
Yeah, right click on your name and mute. Right. So let us understand the meaning of fast in-memory database. So if you take our traditional SAP systems, those SAP systems are connected to what databases, okay, like Oracle, MySQL, like this. So in case of this traditional databases, data is stored in the form of what rows. Data is stored in the form of rows. Whereas if you take this S4 HANA, data is stored in the form of what columns plus rows. Columns plus rows. We have something called as row storage database and column store database. Row store database and what column store database. So traditional databases supports only what row store database, supports only what row store. But if you take HANA database, it supports both column store as well as what row store. Again, to understand what is the meaning of this column store and row store, it may take some time. It may take some 7 to 10 sessions where we get into the practical part. In the native SQL, native HANA development, we'll understand the difference between what row store and what column store. But just for the timing, remember, if you take this traditional databases, okay, in case of traditional databases, it is supports only what row store. Data is stored in the form of rows. But if you take this S4 HANA system, which uses the HANA database, they support what both row store as well as what column store. Okay, so what is the advantage of this column store? Again, as I told, it will take some time. For the timing, just remember, since it supports both row store and column store, okay, it can process huge amount of data, it can process huge volumes of data in a shorter time. Fast in memory database means I can put it in something like this. Suppose if you take a traditional ABAP reporting, what is the procedure we'll follow for reporting? We'll declare the internal tables. We'll write the select queries. What is the job of the select query? It has to pull the data from the database systems. What are the data retrieved from the database? That data will store it in what? Internal table. Where this internal table gets created, they get created in the application server. So once a data is stored in the internal table, we are going to process the data. Understood? We are going to insert new data, or we are going to sort the data, or we may what append a new data, we may delete unnecessary data, or we may modify the existing data, or what we may perform some calculation. So we are going to do some sort of what processing. That processed data, you will update it back to what database, or you will display it to the user in the form of what report. I repeat once again, in our traditional Abap reporting, what is the programming style we'll follow? We'll declare the internal tables, we'll write the select query to pull the data from one or more tables. What are the data you are retrieved from the database? That data will come and sit in what? Internal tables. Once the data is stored in the internal tables, we are going to process the data. We are going to perform some operations on that data. Once the data is processed, we'll update that processed data back to database, or you'll display it to the user in the form of what? Report. It can be a classical report or what? ALV report. That is a different discussion. Okay. That is a traditional programming. But if you take this HANA, the entire processing, the entire calculations will be performed at what? HANA database level itself. Okay. Will be performed at what? HANA database level. Understood. So we are not going to pull any data to the application server. We are not going to do any calculations in the application server. Whatever the business logic is there, the entire business logic needs to be executed in what? On our database. In the sense, we are going to write the ABAP code in such a way that you need to push your ABAP code. You need to push your ABAP code to the ANA database, so that your business logic gets executed at what? ANA database level itself. Okay, and what are the required result is that will be returned back to what? Application server to display it to what? User. Okay, means the entire processing, the entire calculations will be performed at what? ANA database. Means we are going to leverage the features of what? ANA database. We are going to make use of features of what? ANA database. ANA database has got some features, like one of the features is what? In-memory database. Means the ANA database is capable of doing the processing at the database level itself. Now the question arises, if you perform the operations, if you perform the calculations at the database level, the load will be increased. We need not worry about the load, because ANA database supports different things like in-memory database. It supports both what? Row store and column store. It supports something called as what? MPP. What is that? Massive parallel processing. So there are some features. Because of that features, as a developer, we need not worry about the performance. Okay, our job is we need to write the ABAP code in such a way that your ABAP code, we have to push it to what? ANA database. The business logic, you have to send it to what? ANA database. So they get executed at what? ANA database level itself. Understood? That is the main agenda of what? ABAP ANA consultant. What is the role of ABAP ANA consultant? He is responsible for improving the performance of the reports. How do we improve the performance of the existing reports? By pushing your business logic to what? ANA database, so that we can leverage, we can make use of the features of what HANA database so that it can process huge amount of data in a very shorter time. Okay, because of that features, now the customers are slowly moving to what? HANA database. I cannot say that every customer is moving. It will take some time, maybe another 3 4 years, where all the customers will move to what? HANA database. But now the new implementations, they are going for HANA database. Even the existing implementations also, they are migrating their database to what? HANA database. Okay, because we need to improve the performance of the report. That is the main role of what? Abap HANA consultant. So fast in-memory database means what you have to understand is HANA database has got some what? In memory some features where it is responsible for doing the processing, entire processing at what? Database level itself, so that it can process massive amount of data in a very shorter time. So this is one of the features of what? HANA. What is the next thing? Beautiful user experience. Okay, beautiful user experience. What is the meaning of that? If you take this S4 HANA system, okay, all the screens are what? Fieri screens. Okay, all the screens are what? SAP Fieri screens. How that Fieri screens are developed? By using what? UI5 framework. By using UI5 framework. Understood. So as an ABAP ANA consultant, you need not worry about this UI5. What I am talking is, if the customer is going for S4 ANA business suite, all the screens which are available in S4 HANA, they are what? Fieri screens. Nothing but what? They are developed by using what? UI5 framework. So what is the advantage of this Fieri applications? They're compatible with what? Any kind of device. They're compatible. I can run it on desktop. I can run it on tablet. I can run it on smartphone, whatever it is. Suppose, assume that I am having a report. Okay, that report, if I that report is developed using what? This Fieri application, UI5 framework. So if I run it on desktop, assume that that report is going to show me what? 10 table columns. If I run the same report on the tablet, it will show me what? Some 5 columns. If I run the same report on the smartphone, it will show what? Around 3 columns. So what I mean to say is, depending on the device we use, the report is auto adjusted. It is responsive according to the device. Okay, that's a beautiful user experience. So if you take out traditional SAP screens, okay, they are developed using what? Normal Abap GUI module pool programming. Okay, so if you take this S4 HANA screens, they are developed by using what? Fieri screens is something about what? UI5 framework. Beautiful user experience. Then apart from that, this S4 HANA supports what? Different around, it supports around, as per my knowledge, it supports around 10 LOBs. LOBs means lines of businesses. Lines of business. In the sense, just now I told, we have S4 HANA HR, S4 HANA supply chain, S4 HANA manufacturing, S4 HANA sales, S4 HANA R&D, S4 HANA asset management, S4 HANA service. Like that, it supports what? 10 different lines of business. You take any kind of business, S4 HANA has got the solution for that. Okay. And this S4 HANA, we can run it on what? Can be run on what? Cloud, or I can do it on what? On premise. I can install it locally. Okay. On cloud as well as what? On premise. Okay, and it has got what? More simplicity means, suppose assume that you take our traditional R3 system, assume that we have some inventory process, for example. Okay, inventory process, inventory management. So to perform that inventory transaction, assume that I need to hit some 20 different tables. 20, actually, according to my knowledge, there are some 25 to 26 tables we need to hit to perform an inventory process. Okay, we have different types of tables: MSTQ, MST, MST. I'm talking about the traditional RC system. But if you take this S4 HANA, what they have done is they have reduced the number of tables also. Understood? They have reduced the number of tables. Means in the traditional R3 system, to perform that inventory process, I need to make use of what? Around 26 tables. But if you take this, okay, let me put it like this. So if you take a normal ECC, to perform that inventory what? Process, I need to hit some what, around 26 tables. Okay, we have to hit around 26 tables. We have different tables here, MSTQ, MST, like this. We have different tables. But if you take this S4HANA system, they have simplified the process. Means they have taken only one table. We have a table called as something MAT doc. We call it as material documents. Okay, understood. So in this table only, they made use of all the fields related to this particular 26 tables. They have simplified that particular process. And apart from that, if you take a general transaction, suppose I want to create a sales order in my ECC system. So what is the T code we use? VA01. So to create a simple sales order, assume that the user has to navigate around 5 to 6 screens, and he has to capture data related to what, many fields. But if you take this S4HANA sales process, S4HANA sales system, to create a simple sales order, I may be able to use, I may be able to do it in what, 1 or 2 screens, and with a limited number of what, fields. So they have simplified the entire business process. They simplify the entire business process. Suppose assume that I'm a SAP SD consultant. So I know the business process which happens in what, SND. So what I'll do now to upgrade my skill set, I'll move on to what, S4HANA sales. So when I move on to S4HANA sales, I'll understand what are the tables I have to use related to S4HANA. Means if you take the ECC system, the tables might be different. Okay, and I need to navigate across many screens to perform that particular transaction. But in S4HANA, you'll have limited number of screens and limited number of what, fields. Means the entire business process they have simplified. So these are the some of the important features related to what, S4HANA system. So by explaining these features, we'll convince the new customers to go for this particular S4HANA business suite. Okay, so whatever I discussed so far, this is nowhere related to what, Abap HANA, no way led to what, Abap HANA. Whatever I discuss is just to understand the difference between S4 HANA and what, Abap HANA. S4 HANA is purely what, functional. Okay, and I told it contains what, different lines of what, businesses. Abap HANA means the prerequisite is ABAP, which we should know basic ABAP and object oriented. Now, our agenda is as an ABAP consultant, if you're working on Hana database, what is your role means to improve the performance of the reports. How do we improve the performance of those reports? By what? Moving your business logic, by moving your business logic to what? Hana database. So what exactly is the meaning of this is, let me put it like this. One second. Let me finish up this. Then, if you have any questions, you can ask me. First, let me explain this. So, if you take our current system, that is a traditional approach. So, what is the programming style we'll follow here? Suppose assume that this is your application server. This is your application server, and this is your what, Hana database. Sorry, not Hana database. This is non-Hana database. Non-Hana database. Okay, right. Done. Now assume that this is the current process. So in the current system, we call this process as data to data to code approach. Data to code approach. So we'll understand what is the meaning of this. Right. So this is your application server of your ABAP system, and this is what, non-HANA database means. It can be any database, but other than what, HANA, non-HANA database. Okay. So the entire business process, the calculations, we are going to do it in what, our application server. Okay. So what we are going to do in this process, if you take this process, one second. Yeah. This is a, in the current system, what is the process we'll follow? We'll send the request. We'll send the request to what, database for reading what, for retrieving the data. Okay, this is the first thing you'll do. from the application server will execute the select queries to read the data from the database system. Then what happens? Whatever the return data is there. Okay, so what it is going to do? It is going to return the records, means the data, to what? Application server. Returns the records to what? Application server. Assume that I'm returning some 50,000 records. For example, I'm saying I'm returning some 50,000 records, and where they get stored, whatever the data you're retrieving from your database system, you'll store it in what? Internal tables. Means you'll declare the internal table, the retrieved data will come and sit in what? Internal table. Done. Then what you'll do? Okay, so here how many records I'm fetching here? 50,000 records I'm fetching. So to fetch this 50,000 records from where? Database. What you are doing here? It increases load on what? Database server, because you have to return the 50,000 records. Okay, and to return this 50,000 records from the database server to what? Application server, it increases load on what? Network layer also. No, it increases load on network layer. How it increases? Because the data has to travel from where? Database to what? Application server. So it increases the load on what? Network layer. Then after fetching the data into what? Internal table, what we are going to do? We are going to what? Process the data. Means we are going to perform some calculations, like we are going to loop, we are going to modify, we are going to delete, we are going to sort. Like this, you'll do n number of things. Okay. So what is happening here? You are increasing the load on what? You are increasing the load on what? Application server. Am I clear? So here the load is increased on database server, the load is increased on network layer, the load is increased on what? Application server. So the in the traditional approach, what are the approach we are doing is data to what? Code approach. Means we will pull the data from the database system to our application server, and entire business logic gets executed in what? Application server. Now, as an Abap Hana consultant, what is my role? I need to increase the performance of my reports. Okay, existing reports, or it might be new report, whatever it is. So what you will do here? Let me put it like this. Yeah, 1 second, please. This is your what? A traditional approach. Okay, we call it as what? Data to what? Code approach. Data to code approach. Now, if you take this ANA context, so assume that this is your application server. This is your application server, and assume that this is your ANA database. This is the ANA database. Okay, and it's something like this. Right. So here all the calculations we are going to do, we are going to do at what? On a database level. So assume this is your application server, and this is your what? On a database. Application server, what? On a database. So 1 second. So here what you are doing? We are sending the request to what? On a database, sorry, non-HANA database, and the data is pulled from what? Non-HANA database to what? Application server. Okay, here also we are going to push the code to what? HANA database. It gets executed, it was going to process the data at the what? HANA database level, and the processed data, only the processed data will be written to what? Application server, so that I can receive it, I can display it to the user. Okay, so this approach we call it as what? Code to what? Code to data approach. Code to data approach. This is your what? In the new system, I mean to say the ANA approach. Okay, so here just try to understand how we are going to do the processing here. So let me put it like this. Yeah, here we are going to write what? The ABAP code. How do we write? That we'll discuss in throughout the course. Write the ABAP code, and this we have to write the ABAP code in such a way that we need to so that write the ABAP code so that it is pushed to what? We are not going to push. The code is automatically pushed to what? So that it is pushed to what? HANA database. So we are pushing our business logic. We are pushing our business logic to what? HANA database. Then here, what we are going to do? Execute the ABAP code, where we are going to execute in the HANA database. Okay. What we are going to do in the HANA database here? Assume that we are going to perform what? All kinds of what? We are going to perform all kinds of what? Simple and what? Complex calculations, whatever it is. Simple and what? Complex calculations. Then after doing this, what it is going to do? It is going to return. It returns the HANA database is going to return the processed data to what? Application server. Okay. So here, what is the main agenda here? We are going to process the business logic in what? HANA database. Okay. So the processing, the processing business logic is done in what? HANA database. So if it is done in the HANA database, what it will do? It will leverage the features of what? HANA database. It leverage the features of HANA database. What are the features of HANA database? It is what? It is nothing but what? In memory database. Means it is capable of what? Doing the calculations at the database itself, in-memory database. And already we have discussed, HANA supports what? Both column and what? Row storage. Supports both column and what? Row storage. Means when I'm creating the database tables, I can decide whether it is column store table or what? Row store table. At this stage, please forget about how the data is stored in row storage and column storage. We'll discuss that in the coming sessions. But it supports what? Both column and what? Row stores. And what else? This HANA database, one of the important features is compressions. Means any redundant data is there, removes the redundant data. Removes redundant. Is the spelling is correct? Yeah. Removes what? Redundant data. Okay. So how it will remove the redundant data? Again, we'll discuss when we discuss the architecture in the coming sessions. Then another important features is what? MPP, multi-core parallel processing. Multi-core parallel processing means it can execute multiple requests parallelly. These are the important features of what? HANA database. So to make use of these features, we are going to push our business logic to what? HANA database. So how you are going to push? How you are going to push this business logic? This is done by using, okay, where can I write? Yeah, I'll put it here. One second. Yeah. So how do you push this business logic to HANA database? This is done in multiple ways. We have some concepts here by using what? ADBCs, okay, by using AMDPs. These are all the features of what? Abap HANA. Concepts we are going to discuss in what? Abap HANA. By using ADBCs, AMDPs, and what else? By using something called as CDS views, okay, by using something called as what? ALV IDA, and by using something called as what? HANA modeling, we are going to push our business logic to what? HANA database. So here I can put it one more thing here, native HANA development. Native HANA development. Yeah. Okay. So these are the topics that we are going to discuss in our ABAP HANA. So I repeat once again, I'll just summarize everything. I'm working in a project as a ABAP HANA consultant. Means already you're having lots of years of experience in what? ABAP. Now you are working as what? ABAP HANA consultant. So what is your role? We need to write the code in such a way that you need to push your business logic to what? HANA database. So what are the different ways of pushing the business logic? By using the concepts called as what? ADBCs, AMDPs, CDS views, ALV IDA. ALV IDA means we know the ALV reporting traditional ABAP now. ALV reporting using function models, ALV reporting using classes, and SALV classes, factory classes. Okay, so those three approaches are different. This ALV IDA is different. Means the way we develop the ALV reports in HANA database is different. So that is nothing but what? ALV IDA. And then we have something called as HANA modeling. HANA modeling is basically for BW consultant mainly, but as an ABAP HANA consultant, it is always better that we have the knowledge on that particular modeling part also, because our role might be what's in some parts of that modeling, our role might be required. Even though you are not involved in complete modeling, somewhere you need to write some code. For that purpose, we should know this HANA modeling also. But more focus should be on what? Native HANA development, how to use ADBCs, AMDPs, CDS views, and what? ALV IDA. So these are the 5 topics or 6 topics that we are going to discuss as part of this ABAP HANA. And this ABAP HANA requires around what? 40 to 45 hours. Hours, I'm saying, I'm not going by the days. 40 to 45 hours. Okay, and where do we do this? What all this development means? We require what? HANA Studio. Okay, HANA Studio. So how to get that HANA Studio? I'll let you know in the coming sessions. Okay, you need not install on your own. It is not possible to install on our system. So my suggestion is there are many vendors who will give their server for what? Rental access. Okay, so once I start with the practical part, maybe tomorrow onwards, okay, I'll be sharing their vendor details. You can directly contact them and you can take their server for what? Rental access. You can connect to the server remotely. Okay, they'll charge some 1,000 to 1,200 per month. 1,000 to 1,200 per month. We are only into training. Okay, I repeat once, this is important. We are only into the training. Server access we are not going to give. Okay, yes, other institutes, they may give the server access, but we are not into that setup. Okay, we are only into the training part. This HANA Studio, you need to take it from what? Different vendors. I'll share their vendor details in 1 or 2 days. You can directly contact them. You can refer my name. Okay, you can take it. They'll charge some 1,000 to 1,200, 800 to 1,200 per month. I'm not exactly sure. So you can refer my name and you can discuss with them. Okay, so here we are going to discuss. 1 second, please. 1 second. Let me open that course curriculum. Yeah, so if you observe this, so initially 1 or 2 days, probably today and tomorrow. Tomorrow anyway we'll be starting with the practical part. So you'll have only the theory sessions for the first 2 days, most probably. Okay. So tomorrow what we are going to do is we are going to discuss the role of what? ABAP consultants in what? SAP HANA. Okay. So as I told you, we are working as a what? ABAP consultant. Now you got an opportunity to work as what? ABAP HANA consultant. So what exactly is your role? What kind of developments we'll do? That part I'll discuss in tomorrow's session, because there are other peoples who are expected to attend from tomorrow, most probably tomorrow or from Monday. But anyways, I'll discuss the role of Abap Consult tomorrow only. Then I'll start with the introduction of what? HANA Studio. So how the course will go on is, initially we need to keep the HANA database ready. Try to understand. We need to keep the HANA database ready. Means as part of HANA database, we are responsible for developing what? Different types of objects. Like we'll be developing tables, triggers, views, sequences, okay, synonyms, okay, column views, indexes, okay, like that. We have many database objects. Okay, so in the initial 10 to 15 hours, we'll be spending time on what? Native HANA development. Means where we are going to design the HANA database. Okay, this is called as what? Native HANA development. And once a database is ready, we'll be discussing how to create the stored procedures, how to consume the process from the ABAP programs. Okay, so you can compare this stored procedure similar to a function model. So as an ABAP consultant, you know how to design how to create the function models, how to call the function models. Similarly, related to HANA context also, we are responsible for creating the procedures. We are not going to create the function models. Forget function models. Again, function model means they get executed in what application server. If you take HANA context, we are going to create what something called what stored procedure. That stored procedure gets executed at what HANA database level. So once a stored procedure is available, and I can consume it from what ABAP reports. So that part we are going to discuss stored procedures, and then we have something called as ADBC. ADBC. Just like if you know Java, in Java we have something called as JDBC, Java Database Connectivity. In the ANA context, we have what? ADBC, Abap Database Connectivity. Then we are going to discuss a concept called as AMDP, Abap Managed Database Procedures. Then we are going to see how to develop ALV reports, how to handle events in what ALV related to what ANA context. That is nothing but ALV IDA. Then we are going to discuss what core data services. Okay, all these approaches are what? All these approaches we call it as what? Code to data approach. We are going to write the ABAP code so that that code gets executed in the ANA database level. So after this core data as a service, we are going to discuss what HANA modeling. So once we are strong in these areas, HANA modeling, CDS, AMDP, stored process, ALV native HANA development, you can project strong experience of what? 2 to 3 years. 2 to 3 years on what? This ABAP HANA. Okay? Make clear. After completing this course, you'll be in a position to project strong experience of what 2 to 3 years on what purely on what ABAP HANA. I'm not talking about general ABAP. General ABAP, you put how much experience you put it. But after attending this training, can you project any experiences? Yes. Whatever we are going to discuss, we are going to discuss all the live scenarios. That knowledge would be more than sufficient to crack the interviews and also to work on what ANA. Okay, not only getting job is important, but also we should be able to survive. So whatever we are going to discuss as part of our course, that knowledge would be sufficient to what work as what ABAP and a consultant. Okay, going forward, once you got real exposure to what ABAP HANA, then if you are interested to learn any function model, then you can go for what S4 HANA finance, S4 HANA logistics, depending on your interest and depending on your experience. Understood? Just like you learn as an ABAP consultant, we'll try to learn what SAP SD or SAP MM, SAP what FICO. Okay, similarly, once we are good in what ABAP HANA, maybe after what 1 or 2 years you can get into what S4 HANA modules. It can be any S4 HANA model depending on your experience and what domain knowledge. Okay, so as part of our course, what we are going to discuss is we are going to send daily emails which contains what notes, notes and programs. So in the during the live session, you need not copy anything. You need not copy anything. Everything will be sent it through what email. The detailed notes, programs, diagrams, and apart from this, as an additional service, we have started sharing the recordings also from last 1.5 year. Okay, so these recordings is only what an additional service. Okay, it's an additional service. Okay, what are the recordings are there? We'll be sharing these recordings for preview access. Preview access means suppose assume that the course with the duration of the course is what we require around what 40 to 45 hours. 40 to 45 hours. So sometimes what happens is there would be some concept during the course, there would be some concepts where we don't require the live session. So for those kind of theoretical concept, okay, I might be sharing the recordings. I might be sharing the recordings. Okay, some 2 to 3 recordings I'll share apart from the live session recordings. So if this goes for 40 to 45 hours, assume that the duration will be around what 2 months. So this recordings you'll have the preview access for what 3 months. Understood? So during the course, anytime you can refer to any particular topic, you can go through that particular recording. It is not downloadable, it is only preview access. And it will be for what? Around 3 months. Okay. And these recordings also, see, these recordings also, it may not be possible for me to send it on a daily basis. Okay. but for most of the batches, I'll try to send on daily basis. But again, I want to be on safer side. So these recordings will say what 2 to 3 times a week. In the sense, for example, we have Monday session and Tuesday session. Okay, so I may be sharing these two recordings on what Tuesday. For example, I'm saying okay, and Wednesday, Thursday's recording I might be sharing on what Thursday, and again Friday recording I may be sharing it on what Saturday. Am I clear? I'll try to share it on the same day. It again, it is not immediately after the class, by the end of the day, anytime, because I need to convert the recordings. It is not so simple, and not only this batch, I'll be having some 3 4 different batches. So I need to do the conversions of the recordings in my free time, and then I need to share it in what Google Drive. Okay, so these recordings 2 to 3 times a week, in the sense I'll be sharing all the recordings, but may not be on the same day. Monday's Tuesday's recording I may share it on Tuesday, by end of Tuesday, like this. But I say like this, but for most of the batches, I'll try to share it on the same day, at least by evening or by night. Okay. But sometimes, because of the work pressure, I may not be able to share it on the same. But this notes, whatever I said, this will be shared on the daily basis. By afternoon, most probably you'll get this email. Okay, so this is the overall thing. And for practice purpose, as I said, we are not going to provide any server access. Why I'm telling all these things is I want to be clear on the first day itself. Okay, this server access, you need to take it from what outside vendor. I'll share that vendor details in couple of days. You can contact them through email or by phone. They'll charge some 800 to 1200 per month. Okay, they'll keep on varying it, 800 to 1200 per month. You can just connect to that server remotely and you can start practicing. And for the development process, we require what? Hana Studio. What are the topics I said? ADBCs, AMDPs, CDS views, okay, Hana modeling. For doing those developments, we require what? Hana Studio. Okay, so tomorrow what we are going to do is we are going to discuss what is the role of what Abap consultants in what SAP HANA. So if you're a Abap consultant working on SAP HANA platform, what is your role in the project? What kind of developments will do? Just like if you take our Abap what roles and responsibilities, we are involved in what RISE development means. We are responsible for developing reports, interfaces, conversions, enhancement, that smart forms, all those things. Similarly, if you are working as Abap Hana consultant, what kind of development you have done? Means by attending this session, you should able to what explain what is your role in the project. If you're attending an interview and projecting some 2 to 3 years of experience on Abap Hana, so with this knowledge, you should be able to tell what kind of development we have done, what are the tools you have used, all those things. So that part we'll discuss tomorrow. And I'll start with the introduction of Hana Studio also. Means practical part, most probably I will start from tomorrow only. And another point is these sessions officially are from Monday to Friday. Monday to Friday, okay, 6 to 7 a.m. But again, see, we promise 6 to 7 a.m. Again, it may go up to 6:15 also sometimes. Okay, so 6:15, and be flexible till what 7:15. Official time is 6 to 7 a.m. and every day we'll be sending the meeting ID. It's not the same meeting ID. The meeting ID will be keeping on changing every day. So just before the class, we are going to send the meeting ID. You can connect to that. So official timing is 6 to 7, but be flexible till 7:15. Once we start the practical part, some discussion may go up to 7:15, 7:20. So I request to be flexible in that part. And classes will be from what Monday to Friday. But one more thing I want to convey. Currently, I'm just going to this UI5. I'm having a UI5 batch, UI5 front end batch. It's almost done, but I require some 4 to 5 hours of time to complete that batch. So next week, somewhere in the next week, I may not take the class on Friday. Monday to Thursday, I'll take this Abap Hana, but next week Friday I may not take it. I'll convey it 1 or 2 days before only. But classes will be from Monday to Friday. Next session will be continued tomorrow, same time around 6 o'clock. Okay. So this is the thing. Initially, the class will be from Monday to Friday. Maybe after a couple of weeks, once I'm done with the existing UI5 batch, if it is possible for everyone and feasible for me also, then we'll have the session on Saturdays. Otherwise, it will be from Monday to Friday only. We require 40 to 45 hours to complete the entire Abap HANA syllabus. So this is from my end. Now, if you have any questions, please ask me. You can use the chat box or you can unmute and ask. And one more point is, it's not that you need to ask the queries only at the end of the session, because today is the introduction session. Uh, I'm asking you the doubts for the doubts at the end of the session, but generally on a day-to-day basis, any point of time during the session, whenever you have any query, you can just unmute and ask, or you can use the chat box. Okay. So any questions related to the plan and the syllabus, whatever it is, please feel free to ask.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, Sheikh. Yeah, Sheikh, tell me.
Yeah. Hi, Sridhar. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah. Sridhar, actually, for this Abap, you data also required.
No, no. OData is not required. See, again,
Okay.
suppose when you're discussing this CDS views, where I kept it, yeah. When you're discussing the CDS views, yeah, you can see, as part of the CDS views, we are
Okay.
going to expose, one of the topic is what? Expose the CDS views as what? OData service. So you don't
Okay.
really require it, but anyway, as part of the course, we will be discussing this, how to develop a simple OData service. Again, see, for this OData service, we should know complete UI5 backend. This course itself will be taking what 1 month of time. Complete OData
Okay.
service development will take 1 month of time. We are not going to discuss that, but as part of the CDS views, one of the topic will be exposing CDS views as OData service. So at that time, we'll discuss what is OData service, how to develop a simple OData service, what is the purpose of the OData. We'll discuss. That knowledge would be sufficient. That anyway, I'll cover it as going forward. Going forward in future, the job responsibilities for an ABAP consultant is front end will be what, the Fiori part, I mean to say the UI5, okay, and the back end will be what, this OData service, OData with a combination of what, HANA database. So we should be, as an ABAP consultant, we should be ready with these things. If not now, maybe after a couple of years, by 2021, 2022, this requires mandatory for every ABAP consultant. Traditional GUI will be what, outdated. Everything will be what, this Fiori application only, and backend part we require the OData service and HANA database.
Okay.
So, answer to your question is yes, we don't require knowledge of OData service. Whatever is required, I'll cover it as part of the course itself. But if you want to project yourself as a UI5 backend developer, we should be strong in that OData service development. For that, you should be ready at least by next couple of years. Yeah, Sharon, what
Okay.
is the doubt?
Yeah, Sridhar. So, I mean, you mentioned we need to have knowledge about OABAP, right? So, like, I haven't worked heavily on OABAP. So, is that mandatory? Like, we need to be aware of all OABAP concepts, or how is it actually?
See, when I say concepts, these things are required. Okay, means we should know what is class. Okay, we should know what is instance method, static method, instance attribute, static attribute. Okay, what is single inheritance, what is multiple inheritance, what is constructor. So conceptual thing, yes, we require. We
Okay,
require.
so like
Because
practical knowledge may not be required, right? So we can understand from your
no, see,
classes also.
I'll put it in this way. Uh, if you are strong in object-oriented concepts, means if you are strong in, if you are having strong practical exposure to what OOPS concepts, then you can become strong in what UI5. You can become strong in what ABAP HANA. Okay, you can become strong in what SRM technical. You can become strong in what CRM technical. So what I mean to say is, as an ABAP consultant, we should be very strong in what object oriented. Okay, then only you can become strong in what other areas. But because if you take UI5 front end, okay, in UI5 front end as well as in UI5 back end also, complete is what object oriented. Again, if you take Abap HANA, in this Abap HANA as I listed here, where is that? Yeah, in the Abap and also, when you're discussing these ADBCs, when you're discussing these AMDPs and ALV IDA, they are the three areas where we require what? Object-oriented concepts. ADBCs, AMDPs, and ALV IDA. So my suggestion is, yes, you require strong practical knowledge of what? Object-oriented. Then you can become strong in what? Abap. Otherwise, you can understand everything, but if you want to develop anything from the scratch, we require strong exposure to what object oriented. So my suggestion is yes, you require strong practical knowledge and object oriented also to become strong in what ABAP, HANA, or UI5 because any future technical models they are completely object oriented. So yeah, any other questions? Yes, you
Oh,
can
yeah,
practice, Kishore.
yeah,
Kishore,
Sridhar,
you
one
can.
more thing.
Yeah, Sheikh,
Hello.
tell me.
Yeah, you told right. OABAP is required for ANABAP. So we are not working in like OOPS still now. So are you able to cover all concept from OABAP?
No, no, I want to be
Okay.
what uh, we are not going
Like
to discuss. We are not going to discuss any object-related concepts. We are going to focus only on what Abapana part. So
oh,
it is assumed that we are already strong in this because to be fair, okay, we are having separate object-oriented batches also. Okay, separate object batch means that will go for 1.5 to 2 months. Okay, so we are not going to discuss anything again related to object. It is already assumed that we know these things. So again, no, I don't want to cheat people. Okay, everything it is assumed that we know these things. Directly, we'll focus on Abapana. Purely this Abapana itself will take what 40 to 45 hours. What most of the people will do is they'll say Abapana, okay, and again they'll start discussing this class method. Means they'll do time pass for 20 to 25 days with these OOPS concepts. Another 15 20 days they'll do focus on what Abapana. But here I want to make it clear we are not going to discuss anything related to this part. It is understood that we already know this. We are going to discuss only Abapana for 40 to 45 hours. Yeah. Any other questions, please? Kishore, yes, you can practice. You can practice. If you have that Hana Studio installed on your client machine, okay, you can practice. Hana Studio, Hana Studio means obviously connected to Hana database only. Yes, you can practice. Any other questions? So my suggestion is, if you are not good in object oriented, we don't require object immediately because initially we'll be starting with what native ANA development. This native ANA development itself requires around 15 hours at least. 15 hours of time means maybe another 3 weeks of time. 2 to 3 weeks of time we'll be spending time on what native ANA only. So by that time you can just go through that object and concepts offline so that you'll be confident when we start with that ADBC or what AMDPs. Any other questions?
Sridhar, like just wanted to
Mhm.
understand, like, is there any better approach to learn Abap to online portals, or what is the best suggestion, I mean, you can provide to just understand the concepts in the meantime?
No, there are many websites. So just say search for Oops Abap tutorials. You'll get many what sites like saptechnical.com, SAP what sapyard.com. Okay, we have many portals. You can just go through that.
Okay.
saptechnical.com, what else? sapyard.com, saplearners.com. Okay, you can just refer to any of these sites and you can learn that object oriented. See, the problem is If you know the conceptual thing, yes, you can understand this what ABAP and all the topics you can understand. But the problem will come when you're trying to do any development. Suppose in the project you got a requirement where I need to develop an AMDP. So if you are not strong in object oriented, it would become difficult. That's why if you're strong in object oriented, yes, we can directly focus on what this particular AMDPs or ALV IDAs, all those things. So maybe you require another 2 to 3 days, 3 weeks of time to get into that part. By that time, offline, you can just go through this, refer to these websites. You can learn this object oriented. Any other questions, others? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Ashutosh
Ashutosh?
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I'm going to ask in my office to install the HANA Studio. So,
Mm-hmm.
HANA Studio is enough, or anything else also we need to install to support
Ana
ABAP on
Studio is
HANA?
Ana Studio is sufficient. Sufficient. Obviously, you'll have access to ABAP systems, no?
Yeah, yeah.
ABAP access, yeah. Okay, that would be sufficient, and Ana Studio is required. That's all. Because when you come to these developments, suppose AMDP is there. AMDP, CDS views, okay, these things I can develop, and this native HANA development I can do it only using what? HANA Studio. Okay, so after developing the objects here, if you want to consume it from reports, okay, at that time you require what? Abap access. So you require normal Abap connection and what? HANA Studio. So if you have those two things, that is more than sufficient. Okay,
So, Sridhar,
just for
this vendors will be,
yeah,
sorry, yeah, I mean, one question. So, just,
yeah, sure.
Sridhar, this vendors will be providing access both to both the systems, right? ABAP and HANA Studio.
Yeah, yeah. If you take that rental server, okay, you will have both the access. You will have HANA Studio installed on that as well as this. One second, let me check whether I am having the credentials to show you. One second,
Yeah.
please. Yeah. So I'm just trying to connect to one of the vendor details. I am not sure. Let me check. Okay, done. Yeah, this is also rental this thing only. Yeah, you can see here, this is their rental server. I connected to the server remotely. So you can see on the desktop, the logon pad is installed where you can connect to our SAP servers, ECC systems. I can connect to that. Okay, normal this thing. Yeah, okay, I can connect to this normal SAP system, and somewhere on the desktop, you'll have the HANA Studio installed. So when you ask for the system, you should say Abap HANA server. Abap HANA server, as you can see, we have the HANA Studio installed here. HANA Studio. So if you take this server, yes, you can practice normal ABAP, object oriented, and this complete ABAP HANA. Sharon, is it clear?
Yeah, yes, Sridhar. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I'll be sharing this vendor details. Okay, 1 or 2 days I'll share it. Probably tomorrow I'll share it. You can just refer to them. You can try their system for 1 or 2 days. If you are feeling okay for that, then you can make the payment and continue for the rest of the month. Initially, you ask for the trial access. They'll provide the credentials and the process to access their server remotely. Okay, try it for 1 or 2 days. If you're comfortable, then you can make the payment and you can continue with their server access for monthly basis. They may not give it for everyone. So when they ask who has referred you, say my name, Sridhar from Gensoft, you say, so that they'll give it. Okay. Any other questions? May I know who is this person logged in by name administrator? The first person. The name is not visible here. Before Anil K.C. Raju, there is one person logged in by name administrator. May I know who is this? Anil, Ashutosh, Sandeep, Nageshwar. Nageshwar Reddy, are you my old student? I think somewhere I saw this mail ID. Are you my old student, Nageshwar Reddy? Okay, yeah, fine. Yeah, the configuration part, na, you can directly talk to them, Nageshwar. Okay, I'll give that vendor details. You can directly talk to them. They'll tell you the they're also into our installation. If you want to get it installed on your laptop, they'll also do the installation. They'll charge some amount. Okay, you can ask the configuration it to them only because I'm not exactly sure about that. Okay, so any other questions? If you don't have any questions, I'll wind off. Yeah, may I know who is this person logged in by administrator? Just to unmute it.
Yeah, sir, this is Ashok.
Ashok
Hello.
Mutireni, right? Ashok Mutireni,
Yes,
huh?
sir.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yes, sir.
Kaushik, right? Kaushik reference.
Yes, 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 sir.
Okay, good, good. Yeah. Where you are now? Bangalore?
I'm Bangalore, sir.
Okay, good. Okay, Ashok, fine.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Yeah. Right. So tomorrow we'll start with the role of Abap Hana consultant, and we'll start with the practical part also by uh, getting introduced toward this Hana Studio. Okay, I'm winding off. Whatever we discussed for today, the material and the recording part, I'll share it by end of today. Okay, chalo then. Okay, so I'm winding off. If you have any other questions, you have my number. I think in the mail where you received the meeting ID, you have my contact number. You can WhatsApp me or you can send me a mail also. I'll reply to that. So tomorrow around same time between 6:10, between 6 and 6:10, you'll get the meeting ID. Just use it and connect it to that join go to meeting and you can attend the sessions. Chalo then. So thanks everyone. We'll meet tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yeah.